Good morning, everybody. It's Robin from Great Lakes Science Center. I see a lot of our friends have already joined us this morning. Hello, Janita. Is that how you say that? Lindsay, it's nice to see you this morning. And I believe Rose is also watching. Is that correct? Vera. Lovely to see you with us this morning. I'm really excited for today's episode because today marks a very important day, a historic day that you'll definitely want to stay tuned for. So once again, I'm Robin from Great Lakes Science Center. Welcome to all of our new friends joining us for Curiosity Corner Live. Once again, we come to you live every day at 10:30 in the morning with lots of different demonstrations and hands-on challenges and experiments for you to do at home. Today's episode, like I mentioned, starts us off on a new era of human spaceflight. At the Great Lakes Science Center, we're home to one of only 11 NASA visitor centers in the country. And so we have for you an astronaut who's going to talk a little bit more about the plans NASA has to launch back to the International Space Station. Now, before I bring him on, make sure that you start thinking about your questions because you'll have an opportunity, if you're live with us this morning, to ask astronaut Doug Wheelock all of your questions as long as we have time to do so. The other thing I want to make sure that I mention is that if you've not already done so, be sure to subscribe to our channel and post your comments because we can follow up with them if you're catching this after the live has already ended. If you're in Cleveland and you want to check out some of the coolest things that we have in store, make sure you also head over to our website. Super easy to remember, greatscience.com. All right, kicking us off, I'm going to show you an awesome video. So stay tuned and don't forget, start thinking about your questions. Wow, that was really exciting. I am so exhilarated and I am so excited to introduce one of our friends over at Great Lakes Science Center, astronaut Doug Wheelock. In just a moment, Doug Wheelock is going to come on and talk about how we are returning human spaceflight back to America. So before I bring him up, let me tell you a little bit more about our special guest today. Douglas H. Wheelock was selected by NASA in 1998. The retired U.S. Army colonel has accumulated more than 178 days in space. Wheelock flew aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery on mission STS-120 in 2007. In 2010, Wheelock launched aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft to the International Space Station, where he served as a flight engineer for Expedition 24 and commander for Expedition 25. During this mission, Wheelock conducted 3 unplanned spacewalks to replace a faulty ammonia pump module. Altogether, Colonel Wheelock has conducted 6 spacewalks totaling 43 hours and 30 minutes. The New York native holds a Bachelor of Science in Applied Science and Engineering from the United States Military Academy in West Point, New York, and a Master of Science in Aerospace Engineering from Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. Colonel Wheelock is a dual-rated Master Army aviator and has logged more than 7,000 flight hours in 46 different rotary and fixed-wing aircraft and spacecraft. That is so awesome, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend, astronaut Doug Wheelock.
Thank you, Robin. It's great to join you guys there at the Great Lakes Science Center, one of my favorite places on earth. And it's so wonderful that people can tune in, and hopefully we'll have others joining us. And don't forget to send in your questions because today's a very, very special day. We all get to celebrate sort of a moment in history where the hopes and dreams of ordinary kids from ordinary places will intersect with an extraordinary moment in time where we can begin to explore the heavens again, once again from the Florida coast. So it's great to be with you, and we're really excited about our Launch America campaign.
That's awesome, Doug. I'm so glad that you've been able to spend some time with us this morning. I know, as you mentioned, today is historic, and I'm sure you've got a lot to do. So really, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for spending your time with us.
My pleasure. There's no place else I'd rather be, because today I'm just an ordinary kid again, just like everyone listening again. But I still have stars in my eyes and big dreams for the places we can go and the things we can discover. And so I'm watching with excitement as well, just like everyone listening in. Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to let you take us on this journey. So I'm going to go behind the scenes, and I'm going to let you take it over.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I think we have some slides as well, but just a little bit about myself. My name is Doug Wheelock. Everybody at NASA calls me Wheels. I wish it was because I was a fast runner or drove a cool car or something, but my last name is Wheelock, so they call me Wheels. And on Twitter, I'm at Astro_Wheels. So if you have some questions that maybe we don't get to today, fire away on Twitter those questions as well. And I grew up as a little boy in upstate New York, at the very kind of rural area of upstate New York, along the western slope of the Catskill Mountains. And I remember in our tiny little town, we had the dark sky, where at night when it was clear skies, you could see just the immensity of the heavens and the universe. And I used to lay there in the grass. I remember, thinking as a young boy, how awesome it would be to go out there and to explore. And then, years later, when we watched the people walking on the moon, I was a wee little boy, and I remember watching that on a little black and white TV when Apollo 11, when Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed. I remember that, and I was just a little boy, but I remembered that moment. I was thinking to myself, what an amazing moment in human history. And it was years later. Well, actually, that fall when we came into school, I had a brand new teacher. Her name was Christine West, and she was from the big city of Albany, New York. So she came to this little town, this little country town, and she was my teacher that year. And she came in and she said, "Hey, who saw the moon landing?" And so I raised my hand as well, just with everyone else. And she said, "One day you could do that too." And we thought, this lady's nuts. She has no idea where she is in this ordinary little town, this tiny little school with these ordinary kids. There wasn't much exciting or anything extraordinary that seemed to come out of that little town. And as I went through my career, I began to reflect back at what Miss West said to us. I don't remember much else about that school year, but I remember that she believed in me. And so to all the teachers listening in, or those that are involved in education, or those parents that are teaching your kids at home, professors, and educators of all sorts, thank you. Thank you for believing in our kids and inspiring them to achieve incredible things. Because it was years later when I got to be an astronaut in 1998. Many years later, I got a chance to put on a brand new blue electric blue suit, and I was excited to be at NASA. And about 3 days later, I got a chance to meet Neil Armstrong, and so I began to think back at Miss West's words, way back when I was a little boy, and how important it is to really believe in the things that you dream you can achieve for yourself as well. All these wonderful things. And so it came time for me to ask Neil Armstrong a question. I remembered back at my childhood, and I remember how I felt as a little boy, an ordinary little boy in upstate New York, watching him walk on the moon. And so all these years, I'd I never really believed what Miss West had told us, that these things are available to us as well as ordinary kids from ordinary places. And so I asked him, I said, Mr. Armstrong, when you were on the moon, did you get a chance to look at the Earth and just sort of take a deep breath and just kind of ponder what an amazing moment it was, a profound moment in human history? He said, I did. I thought about those engineers that built that rocket, and I thought about the people that designed the ascent engine to go up off the moon to go back home, and I was thinking about them and grateful for them for their fine engineering. I thought about my teachers and my family, and I thought to myself, how does an ordinary little boy from Wapakoneta, Ohio, end up walking and standing on the moon? And we all kind of laughed. He laughed, and I thought to myself, hey, that's a familiar story, I mean, and the reality is that we're all just ordinary kids from ordinary places, but we have these extraordinary dreams. And thanks to our teachers and educators and our parents and those around us that cheer us on, we're able to believe in ourselves and accomplish these things that we as a small child in a small school, you might think are just not attainable for you. And I'm here to tell you that all of these things in the human experience are attainable for all of us. And so I want to encourage you to watch our launch from America today. It's very, very exciting for us, and they carry the hopes and dreams of all of us into the heavens as we explore this new sort of era of commercialization of spaceflight. And so we're very excited about that. I don't know if we got some slides we can pull up. I wanted to tell you a little bit about what you're going to see today if you get a chance to watch the launch. Of course, we're calling it our Launch America campaign. So if you're on social media and you want to use the hashtag Launch America, that's what we're using today. This is sort of the synergy of the imagination and the ingenuity of creative thought and genius ideas that come along, because the magic of NASA, we call it the magic of NASA. It's not really magic per se. It's that we take these little sparks of ideas and innovation in one area of science, and we kind of nurture those along, and they eventually become revolutionary, sometimes in a completely different area of science. And so we're counting down today. So if you're wherever you are in the world, it's 4:33 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern Daylight Time, and so GMT normalized to GMT. I believe that's going to be 8:33 p.m. GMT. So I believe I had that calculation right. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so you can kind of gauge on there wherever you are located on the Earth. That's our launch time this afternoon. So we're very excited. If we can go to the next slide, I'll show you a little bit about some of the things. So my space flight experience, I got a chance to actually to launch from the Florida coast. I feel very privileged that I had this opportunity. I launched on the Space Shuttle Discovery in 2007, and it was an amazing mission. It was 15 days, and it was a little bit different than what it is this year for our launch. I had 450 or so of my closest friends and family on site there at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, getting a chance to watch the rocket go. And I launched on the Space Shuttle Discovery, which was an incredible launch, very different than the Soyuz. But you can see these photos here. That one photo is me standing outside of the Space Shuttle Discovery just before strapping in for my launch. You could see a big smile on my face, but I had a lot of anxiety as well that day. And I get asked a lot, our astronauts, are you afraid when you strap into the rocket? And there is a healthy amount of fear, but we tend to look at it as just a healthy respect for the environment. And there's a big difference between fear and being afraid. And so we try to manage that fear, manage that risk, and we mitigate risks as we see them. Sometimes we accept risks, and we accept those with preparation. And so we prepare. And so every day when we're training up to a launch now, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, the two astronauts on this mission, have been training for about 5 years for this mission. So you think about it, all those in school, but think where you were 5 years ago, all those listening in, they began their training for this very day 5 years ago. So they are well prepared. They practice in simulation any possible things that could go wrong. We try to brainstorm those things, and at NASA, we practice failing each day that we're in training. And that might sound funny, but one of our greatest fears as humans is failure, the fear of failure. And when we're afraid of failure, it tends to paralyze us. And so what we try to do, and the way we try to train our astronauts, is to understand the situation, educate themselves on ways they can work around different malfunctions and things. And so that way you don't get paralyzed by the fear. You just realize that you're in a dangerous situation, and you've been taught the things you need to be taught, need to have been taught to overcome these challenges. You can see the one image up on the screen there. That's me floating in the node 2 of, the node 1 of the space station. And you can see, probably see the speed limit sign is 17,500 miles per hour, which is roughly 5 miles per second and 8 kilometers per second. And that's how quickly we're speeding around the Earth. So we orbit the Earth once every 90 minutes. And so every 45 minutes, we get a sunrise or a sunset, and each one of them as beautiful as the next. And so this is my second launch on the Soyuz, which was much different. And this will be the launch on this rocket today that you'll witness of the SpaceX Dragon launch. That launch will be on a thin candle, much like you see in this Soyuz launch. And so the vibrations are different. This is a test flight for us, and so we always have this adage as test pilots that part of our senses are heightened when we're in a new vehicle, or whether it be a new airplane or a new helicopter or a new spacecraft. We're in tune to the feel of the vehicle. We in the States, we say flying by the seat of the pants. I know in the UK, it's by the seat of the trousers. But we use that sensory, what we're hearing from the vehicle, what we're seeing with our eyes, and what we feel in our body as far as vibration and course correction and things like that, to understand that things are happening as they should. And so this will be a little bit different experience going up than a shuttle, but very, very similar to a Soyuz mission. In 2010, I got a chance to launch on a Soyuz and spent 6 months on board the space station. And so Doug and Bob, as they launch today, our goal is we would like to get them home safely. And that's our definition of a successful mission, if they come home safely to their friends and family. Now, in the process of doing that, we would like to stay on the space station for up to 30 days. So that way we can test out all of our systems. And if everything's going well, we can extend this mission at maybe as long as 120 days docked to the space station. So, and we have work for them if they spend 2 days there or 120 days. And so we're gonna just kind of see how it goes, take day by day as we go through this test flight. But the image you see on your screen there now is me in the cupola, and this is the windows on the world that we have, the beautiful images that you see coming back from the space station are taken, a lot of them are taken from this cupola. It's quite a panoramic view of our beautiful Earth, just sort of hanging in the balance. And in the daylight, when the light is shining on the Earth, it's like an explosion of color in this vast empty sea of darkness. And oh, by the way, it's turning underneath you in this just stark silence, because you're so far removed from it that it's just in silence as it turns below you. So it kind of changes you, emotionally and mentally and spiritually as well, as you view our Earth from that vantage point of the cupola. And then so in the daylight, it's an explosion of color, and then when the sun goes down 45 minutes later and we're in shadow on the eclipse side of the Earth comes alive with light and color, with the aurora and the lightning strikes and things like that. So it's just an amazing ball of light. At night, you can see the mosaic of our city lights and our towns and our cities, and it's just an amazing landscape that we get a chance to look out on. And we're orbiting once every 90 minutes, and so every 45 minutes we get a sunrise or a sunset. So every day in space, we get 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets, and each one of them just breathtakingly beautiful. And so it's an incredible moment to spend a little bit of time in outer space looking out at our beautiful Earth. I think about when I was a kid in that tiny little town, when I used to look out at the planets and the stars, and I always used to dream about what it would be like to be a kid on Mars or on Pluto. At that time, Pluto was just a faint, fuzzy dot in our most powerful telescopes, and was a planet. I think Pluto should still be a planet again. But anyway, that's another discussion for another day. But I used to think about what it would be like to be a kid on another planet, and our travel to another planet. And so I remember how vivid my dreams were as a little boy. And but then I got to the space station, I looked out these cupola windows at our beautiful Earth, and I thought to myself, I thought about those dreams I had as a kid, what it would be like to live on Mars or something, and I thought, gosh, if I had been a kid on Mars and had a telescope and I could look out into the night sky and see this beautiful blue planet out there in the distance, how much more vivid my dreams would be to go to that place, that really cool blue planet that in the sunlight, it's just an explosion of color. And then the darkness, it's just an explosion of light and motion. And how much more vivid my dreams would have been had I been a kid on Mars looking at this beautiful Earth. So ever since day one on my stay on the space station, my favorite planet is now Earth. So we can go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we do in space. Now, of course, we're hoping that everything goes normally today, that we have no malfunctions. We have no malfunctions on the station, a space station, and on the Dragon as well. But we know just through our history that that's not the way it always goes. And so we practice fixing things that break and overcoming challenges that may arise, whether we're on ascent to space, which only takes about 8 minutes and 45 seconds to get to space. So from 0 to 17,500 miles per hour only takes about 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes to get to space. And so lots of things are happening during that time. And we're going to be watching all of it and making sure that we can overcome the challenges that we face going uphill. That's why we practice. So for those listening in, we always hear the adage, practice makes perfect. That's not really totally true. It's actually perfect practice makes perfect. And so we spend a lot of time preparing, a lot of time kind of troubleshooting what could possibly go wrong. And so sometimes we have to do these spacewalks, and that I've gotten the privilege of doing 6 spacewalks, repairing the International Space Station. 4 of them were emergency repairs, and so space holds for us. I used to reflect on it as there's a surprise around every corner in space, and so it's a very inhospitable area out there in the vacuum of space. Inside of the spaceship, you can see the astronauts floating around in just regular clothes. So we keep the inside of the spaceship much like, temperature and pressure, much like we have here on Earth in our homes that we're used to. And so, but when you don this suit and go outside, you're in the vacuum of space. And so now this view of our universe is this panoramic view through this thin visor. And so there's a lot more fear and a lot more risk that we mitigate and we overcome as we go out on spacewalks. And so with if all things go smoothly and we end up staying for a period of longer than 30 days, we'll be able to see a spacewalk by the current commander of the space station, Chris Cassidy, and one of our crew members on this mission going today, Bob Benkin, will do a spacewalk to replace some of our batteries on the International Space Station as well. We'll go to the next slide. And so now we come to today, our Launch America campaign and the Commercial Crew Program. Next slide, please. And so so now what we've done is over the years, what we're witnessing today is sort of the renaissance, the reemergence of the commercial interest in space and exploration. And so, we used to kind of do it as NASA, and we get our contractors, and we've understood now through these years that all of these, the most creative ideas and the most ingenious inventions and ideas and ingenuity comes out of the private sector, the student in the university, the student in a high school somewhere, even the wee little children, our students, our youngest, come up with these incredible ideas that eventually become just a spark of innovation. And when you bring that along, it becomes the magic of NASA. And it's where we take a spark of imagination and make it revolutionary, like a revolutionary breakthrough in some area of science. And so we're very excited. This is our first big leap, our giant leap out into the heavens on a commercial vehicle built in America by American hands with American ingenuity. And so we're very, very excited to ride this ride today. Next slide, please. So you can take a look here, and I won't read these to you, but we have we're working closely with a lot of commercial companies, both here in America and across the globe. We have all from the big companies that you would recognize their names, and of course this rocket today that we'll witness is SpaceX, which we've all grown to know and understand and love because the ingenuity and the innovation that comes out of a company like that, but all the way down to the little startup companies that are just a spark of an idea for something that can make a space flight safer and more efficient. That we're harnessing those things at NASA, and we're working together with those commercial companies, large and small, all across the board. And now we're bringing back to American shores, our Space Coast in Florida, this opportunity to kind of reach out to the heavens, to understand our place and make our existence and our permanent presence in space continue this, so we can take giant leaps back out to the moon and onto Mars as well. We'll go to the next slide, please. So you can see some of the benefits here, but all of what we're doing in space, we've got a lot of science going on of course, this is a test flight. Whether it's one day, a couple of orbits, or it's 120 days. This mission is a test flight, all of it, every day of it. And so we're learning more and more about our technology, and all of the technology development that we have. Some of it's to prove out and to put some of our technology through the rigorous testing of the vacuum of space. And so this is part of that. And we're going to be learning new stuff every day as we build and design our spaceships to be safer and more efficient. And all of that technology, all of that science is with the three major goals that we have at NASA: to help us take better care of ourselves, help us take better care of each other, and help us take better care of our planet. Everything that we're doing on that space station is designed for that. Even these incredible ideas and these incredible dreams and the technologies we're building to get back to the moon and get onto Mars as well. It's not, for us at NASA, it's not the boot landing on the surface of the moon or the surface of Mars. It's what we're going to learn about ourselves in the process of getting there. And so it's very, very important that we we learn to take better care of ourselves, take better care of each other, and take better care of our planet. So all of our systems in space on the space station are designed to bring back to Earth, to increase and make life better here on Earth, and increase our knowledge of technology and systems engineering back here on Earth as well. We recycle all of our air and all of our water on the space station. In fact, we have a joke on the space station that yesterday's coffee is tomorrow's coffee. So just kind of let that sink in a little bit and enjoy your coffee this morning. But on the space station, and those recycling systems are technologies we're proving out to make recycling systems here on Earth work better and more efficiently as well, so we can take better care of our planet as well. We'll go to the next slide. So now the commercial partners that you're going to see SpaceX today. We do have a number of commercial partners in the cargo supply to the space station. What we're trying to do here is, of course, our last launch of humans from the Florida coast, from America, was way back in 2011. So 9 years ago, nearly nine years ago, in the summer of 2011, was our very last space shuttle launch. And so now this is our return to space with people from the Florida coast, our first return in 9 years. So it's a very, very important and very exciting event for us. And but we have been launching cargo ships. And so we have a lot of cargo ships that are going to and from the space station and returning things to the Earth. And these are that you see on your screen right now are our two commercial crew vehicles that are designed to carry people to and from the International Space Station. And so you can see on the one side is the Boeing Starliner, which is being built by Boeing with many different subcontractor companies around the world helping with those efforts. And then we have SpaceX, of course, which brings us to this incredible moment now, where today we'll witness the Demo 2 flight, which is the crewed test flight where we put people on board. And that's a big step for us. Of course, SpaceX, you've seen them hauling cargo to the space station for a couple of years now. It's been pretty steady missions with cargo, and that's very, very important, especially you think about where we are now in quarantine in our homes. Being in quarantine, whether you're in a small apartment or a large home, it's just like being on your own space station, right? So you look around, you might have crewmates, you might be all alone in your spaceship, but you probably have crewmates, maybe mom and dad or a sibling, or maybe a pet or something, that's there with you. And so you have crewmates. We order things to be delivered to the house. That's kind of like our delivery, cargo delivery to the space station. You have things delivered by vehicle to your front door. Very similar, and very similar to flying in outer space. This is very good training for those that are in isolation right now and in sort of quarantine in your own homes. This is great astronaut training, because the other thing is, when you go outside, you have to think about now the dangers that you might come across. We try to practice social distancing, and we might want to wear a face covering or a mask or something, those things to protect ourselves. It's very similar to what we do when it's time to go outside on the space station. We don our protective suit to keep us safe from the elements of space as well. We'll go to the next slide. So we do a lot of testing. I wanted to put a plug in for, we have these different contractors, and I'm up at near the Great Lakes Science Center in Cleveland, which is where our NASA Glenn Research Center visitor center is co-located there with the Science Center. And we do a lot of our testing up at the Plumbrook Station and the Glenn Research NASA Glenn Research Center in Ohio. And Ohio is a wonderful place for flight. Trust me on that. Neil Armstrong was from Wapakoneta, that tiny little town, and of course the Wright brothers from the other end of the state as well. We celebrate the dream of flight in Ohio, and we did a lot of the testing on the Demo 1 mission, a lot of SpaceX testing at our Plumbrook Station out near Sandusky, Ohio. Big test facilities out there. We can test in vacuum, and it's like a proving ground for spaceships where we can put them into vacuum. We can bombard them with high temperatures, with cryogenic temperatures, and also bombard them with electromagnetic interference, electromagnetic compatibility. So we call it EMI, EMC testing as well, where we can bombard our spacecraft like that to really put it through its paces to make sure that when we put people on these rockets, that it's safe and we know that it will be able to survive and withstand the rigors of the adverse conditions in outer space, the vacuum of space. We'll go to the next one. This is our commercial crew, the lineup that we have. Boxed in red there, you see the crew that you'll witness today, Doug Hurley and Bob Benkin. These are the other crews that are training for our Boeing missions and for our follow-on SpaceX missions as well. And so take a look at these names. And the most exciting thing for us is the opportunity for young women and young girls as well. And we're in a very, very exciting campaign to get back to the moon. And of course, remember, and when I was a child, that those missions to the moon were called Apollo. And in Greek mythology, Apollo, who was the god of the sun, in Greek mythology had a twin sister named Artemis, the goddess of the moon. And so our follow-on missions back to the moon, once we turn over flight to and from the space station to our commercial partners, right now Boeing and SpaceX, there'll be additional commercial partners as we move along in this grand dream of space exploration. And then we'll be building the Artemis vehicles that will return to the moon. And so our near-term goal is in 2024 to return boots to the moon, and we'll see the next man and the first woman to step foot on the surface of the moon in 2024 is our goal. And that's called the Artemis mission. And we're very excited to have women involved in the commercial crew business and excited to send the first woman to the moon in 2024 as well. And a lot of that Artemis testing is going on throughout our NASA test centers. A lot of that work has also been at the NASA Glenn Research Center, not only on the Lewis Field part, which is kind of co-located with the Cleveland Hopkins Airport, but also out near Sandusky at our Plumbrook Station out there as well. So if you want to, you could Google those two areas and take a look at our test facilities at the Glenn Research Center and our other NASA test facilities as well. The rocket that you'll see today is launching from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. We'll go to the next screen, please. So the Demo 2 mission, the launch is scheduled for 4:33 Eastern Time this afternoon. There are a lot of things happening right now. The crew is actually busy right now on a very tightly controlled timeline, and so we look at our launch time, which is an instantaneous launch, of course, and which means there's not really a launch window. We just have to launch on that time, and if we don't hit that time, because we're trying to intercept the space station, we'll have to move to another time, sometimes a couple of days down the road. So we're going to be angling toward that precise time of 4:33 p.m. Eastern time. And it's much like intercepting the space station is much like throwing a football or throwing a ball or something, or maybe kicking a soccer ball. When you have somebody that you're passing it to is running at full speed across the field, when you throw that ball or kick that ball to them, you don't want to kick it right where they are at that moment, because by the time the ball gets there, they're going to be well across the field, right? So we try to measure where they're going to be when the ball gets there, and we try to lead that our teammate as we pass that ball. And so it's very same conditions on the space station. The space station's coming over, and it's traveling at 5 miles per second. So imagine the calculations that have to go on to launch right at the precise time to intercept the orbit of the space station. So very excited about that, and tune in if you can. I know there's a NASA social going on where you can tune into that, and I'm sure the news media will cover the launch as well. Or follow Glenn Research Center, follow the Great Lakes Science Center on social media as well, and there'll be commentary on there as well. We'll go to the next slide, please. So here are some information that you could gather for the launch. There are things out there on social media and I'm sure the Science Center has these things. NASA Glenn Research Center also on their social media sites will have information. If you have access to Twitter or Instagram, those type of social media, there are people at the launch site that are doing play-by-play, and those are interesting to kind of tune into, and so take a moment to do that. And this is a chance where we can all celebrate. It's it's all about we've at NASA we try to harness the incredible curiosity of the human mind and all these incredible dreams and imagination that we have, our heart of wonder, and we try to harness those things and make dreams come true for all of us. So we're all in this together, and we're very excited about the launch. Go to the next slide, please. I don't know if that's it. I think that's it for our slides. And so I think now we'll open it up to questions that anyone might have. And we have a chat room, I think, and also Robin's going to join me, and we'll fire away with questions for as long as we can.
That's right. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure learning not only about your experience but what today has in store for us. So I know exactly where I'm going to be at 4:30. In fact, I've already got nasa.gov in my browser ready to go. So I'm going to head over there and follow what's happening. Let me check. So Stacy F. asked how to watch the launch today. So can you once again reiterate the...
Yeah, there's all kinds of sites. I think that major media will cover it, but they probably will only come in at the very last minute. So if you have access to, if you have the NASA channel, sometimes the NASA channel is carried by cable companies throughout the U.S. If you have the NASA channel, tune in to the NASA channel. You can also go on any kind of web search, go to NASA TV Live. Just put in NASA TV Live and watch NASA TV Live, and you'll have some interviews on there. You also have launch commentary. They'll show in those sort of nervous hours when the crew is strapped in around 2:30. I'm sorry, 2 hours and 30 minutes before launch, and so it happens to be around 2:30 Eastern that they'll be strapping in, and so they'll be sitting on top of that rocket for nearly 2.5 hours before we light the bottom of it. And so during that time, lots of things going on for the crew, of course, but it's a good time for you to watch NASA TV Live, and they'll feed sort of reruns of what happened the previous morning as the crew was getting up. They'll probably show the crew having breakfast, saying goodbye to their families, and heading out to the launch pad as well. So join NASA TV Live.
That's right. There's been a lot of comments about the first woman going to the moon in 2024, and Morley Q happened to also acknowledge the fact that Sunny Williams is an Ohio astronaut from Euclid.
That's right. Sunny's from Ohio, and I'm transplanted there, but I tell the folks at Glenn Research Center and at the Great Lakes Science Center, I wasn't born in Ohio, but I got there as quick as I could, So many Ohio, in fact, I think Ohio has the most astronauts. I'm from New York, as is Doug Hurley on this mission. In fact, Doug and I grew up in nearby towns, hometowns in upstate New York, and so he and I are sort of kindred spirits and from upstate New York, and I think Ohio beats New York for the number of astronauts as well. So, and of course, Ohio is the I love the license plates up here. In North Carolina, the license plates say first in flight because that's where the very first flight into the air in a powered aircraft was by the Wright brothers there at Kitty Hawk. But the license plates in Ohio say birthplace of aviation, because we do celebrate those the original ideas and the birthplace of that those concepts. When the Wright brothers stood up and they said, like, one day we're going to fly like birds, everybody thought they were crazy. And so now here we are, where we're really enjoying the fruits of the ingenuity and the innovation of those early explorers.
That's awesome. And one of the things that really struck me as an important lesson is the fact that this truly happens as a result of collaboration, which is true for all science, and perseverance, and really being resilient through those failures. That's how we learn the most. And I think that we can certainly learn a lot. And I do have a question specifically from Luke, who's 9 years old, and he wants to know what kind of an educational path is good to follow if you want to be an astronaut.
Okay, great question, Luke. And I wish I could give you just a blueprint. If you do these things, you could be an astronaut, becoming an astronaut is just that. It's a journey of becoming, and what you're going to do along the way is you're going to face failure, you're going to face adversity in your life, and so the key is how to design ways to overcome those things, to be able to, when you fail in life, to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move on with more determination and more perseverance. And so what I would encourage you, Luke, to do is we tend to mention the STEM field. So that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we usually draw our astronauts from people that are studying and working in those areas. So it's great if you already have an interest in science, an interest in engineering. That's a good first step. And then the next step is to open up your mind and fill it with curiosity, and then open up your heart and fill it with wonder. Because when you go through life with an open mind and an open heart, you're going to ask the right questions, and you're going to be able to experience the things that your heart is dreaming about, that you have the things you have that you're dreaming about for your own life. So, and in the process of discovering your area of passion in the STEM areas, when you find something you love, have a mind of curiosity, be curious about the world around you, find something that you love to do, find something that you love, because if you love it, you're going to be very good at it, and you'll be at the top of your game. And we'll save a desk for you there here at NASA to be an astronaut. So good question, Luke.
That's awesome. Katerina wants to know if we know which astronauts are going to go in 2024.
We don't. And we know that the first boots on the moon going down that ladder is going to be a woman. That's our goal. And so we don't know who those folks are yet, and so it's very, very exciting at NASA. I'll probably be too old, but I would love to go if they gave me the nod. And it's like, come on, they need like some seasoned guys there too, So, but we'll see. It's very, very exciting. It's a very tight knit group of people, our astronaut corps, and one of the things that's actually one of the characteristics of a high performing team is the fact that if you can work your hardest and work with such passion that people can't take their eyes off of you, all the while not caring who gets the credit, that's when all the magic happens. And that's hard to do as humans, because we're kind of looking out for number one as we go through our career and our studies. But the moment you can become a member of a team and you can function with such high performance that it doesn't matter to you who gets the credit. It's all a team. It's a team effort. Then there's no end and no limits to what you can achieve as a team if you don't care who gets the credit. So we don't know who those first people are going to the moon in 2024, but maybe it's somebody listening in right now, but they're probably in our astronaut corps now, I'm sure, and we're training all of our folks to understand our new systems and be trained and ready to go.
That's awesome. So I've looked back a little bit further, and I do have another question. It's a little bit on the personal side. Okay. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. Laura wants to know if you wear contacts in space.
It's a great question. You can, and you probably noticed, Laura, that I have glasses on. And there are a lot of things physiologically that happen to you in space. And Oh, by the way, let me, before I forget this point, what you're probably getting to, Laura, is you can be an astronaut and still wear glasses and have contacts. So the restriction we have is that you're correctable to 2020. So as long as your eyes are correctable to 2020, you can be an astronaut. So I wear glasses because I experienced during my 6-month mission, I experienced what's called SANS, and I don't know what the acronym stands for, but you can put in a web search SANS, or you can put in vision impairment in long duration space flight, and you'll be able to see the increasing amount of literature that talks about the eyes and the health of the eyes in space, because certain things happen to your body when you get to space. And one of the things that I didn't really realize is how it can change your vision and change actually the structure of your eye. And so this is some of the science that we're still trying to investigate in space as well. So the answer to your question, Laura, is yes, you can be in space. You can be an astronaut in space and wear glasses or wear contacts as well.
That's awesome. I'm not really seeing any more questions. I do want to put up another link that talks about where, so you can watch it here. Obviously, you can head over to nasa.gov/NASA TV, I believe, to watch it as well. Doug, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. There were a couple of questions or things that folks were wondering what happens, or if they know if it doesn't actually launch today, is there a reschedule date, or what's the plan if they miss that small window? I loved your analogy of kicking a soccer ball to somebody who's already in motion. So what happens if they don't happen to launch today?
So we do have a scrub plan. We call it a scrub turnaround plan. We already have that built into our procedures. And so if we get scrubbed for whatever reason, and part of that reason could be weather. And so I was talking to some folks this morning. We might remember back, those that can remember those early shuttle launches, how we were so affected by weather in Florida, because it's such, you got a gulf on one side of the peninsula and an ocean on the other, and sort of these colliding air masses. And so there are times when we can be restricted by weather concerns. And so that's certainly something we make that final decision. Today, we'll make that decision about 45 minutes before launch. We'll do a go, no go for weather. And we do have a scrub turnaround plan. And I believe that the backup plan is not until, I think our next opportunity is on Saturday, I believe. So, but I'll have to research that, and you'll be able to find that online as well. But we have a way, what we sort of back out of the procedures that we do, and we get the crew safely out of the vehicle and away from the launch pad, that we defuel the rocket, and then we just sort of go through this process, and we have that built in. We have written procedures to go through a scrub turnaround plan.
That's awesome. So Luke, apparently he is ready for launch now. So you gave him really solid advice, and he's ready for launch. Awesome, Luke. We're ready to join you. Maybe you and I can go to Mars or something. So that's right. Tales from the School Teacher wanted to know if they know when we're going to be going to Mars. Well, we're targeting about the mid 2030s, like 2033, 2035, somewhere in there would be a good window for us to go. And of course, we're increasing our technologies to be able to get there. We've got robots already on Mars. We're sending another one this summer in July. We have the Mars 2020 rover that's going. And so that's very, very exciting for us as well. And our robots are paving the way for us to get to Mars. And so the cool thing about that, when we think about whether it takes 15 years from now or 20 years from now or 25 years from now, our astronauts, usually they're selected in their young to mid 30s. And so that means if we really believe, and we really, this is part of our vision to go to Mars, that means those first people to step foot on Mars are somewhere in our schools. They're probably a young child between, in grade school or even elementary school or middle school. That will be our first Mars walkers. And so maybe even some listening in will be the first ones to step foot on Mars. And that's very exciting for us at NASA. And for us, we're going to do it safely and efficiently. We're going to make sure that we can get people back safely too. So if it takes us
longer than 15 years to develop those systems to keep people safe and have them return home, we'll do that. So, but those Martian walkers are somewhere out there. So
that's awesome. Who knows? Maybe it's born out of our Camp Curiosity space camps that are going on. And you mentioned something really important, and that's that you don't just flip a switch and all of this happens. It takes a lot of experimentation and a lot of practice and rehearsals. And today is really pretty historic because it's the first time that we're putting humans on board that rocket. So can you speak very quickly to how long this process has happened? And Isaac was wondering when the planning started for this launch today.
The planning started in about 10 years ago. The planning started for what we at that time called the Commercial Crew program. And so we started thinking to ourselves, hey, why don't we, and as we were retiring the space shuttle, if you probably remember when we retired the space shuttle in 2011, these past 9 years, we've been getting back and forth to the space station using the Russian Soyuz. And so there's been a wide gap here where we haven't had our own vehicle as a spacefaring nation and the preeminent spacefaring nation on the planet. And so this started about 10 years ago, the concept, and just a lot of really, really interesting ideas. And through the process, these crews, Bob Benken and Doug Hurley, were assigned about 5 years ago to this mission. They were picked for this. They were training generically for commercial flight to the space station. And then about 2 years ago, they were selected as the first crew. So they've been training solely on this rocket ship for nearly 5 years. And so it's a lot of preparation. It's very much like going to school. And so these are some of the disciplines that you're building while you're in school. And on your journey to accomplish your dreams as well. Sometimes I know, because I was a kid once as well, and a student in school, and I was sort of, sometimes I got frustrated. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't going to accomplish what my dreams. And so it's all about perseverance and stick, because the reality is that, tomorrow we're not going to become, what we dream for our life. It's going to take a long process of staying the course on your journey and getting around people that share the same love and passion for the area of science that you share with them.
That's awesome. I think we have time for one more question, and I'm going to go back to Tales from the School. They wanted to know how the transition from space back to Earth is, and this specifically comes from Connor, who's age 12. He wanted to know a little bit more about how it hurts to land or what your body sort of like adjustment has to go through.
Yeah, great question, Connor, because I was, interestingly enough, the body's adaptation to space, or we call it microgravity or zero G, floating, there are some things that happen physiologically, but the coming back to Earth, especially after my 6-month mission, coming back to Earth, it's so dramatic, the physical changes that your body has gone through, and the readaptation to gravity is really shocking to me. It was, I'll put out a couple of things. First was my eyes. I didn't realize my eyes, the structure of my eyes was changing. And so that was a kind of a surprise for me. Then the other thing, I worked out a lot. We have exercise countermeasures on the space station. And so we have a cycle ergometer, like a stationary bike. We have a treadmill, and we have a weight machine that we use compressed air as the resistance. And so I worked out really hard, because when I got back after 6 months, I wanted to be able to stand up and walk around. And so I stood up. I was real proud that I was able to stand up, and I felt strong. My legs and my arms felt strong, and I felt like I could do this. And my neck started to hurt after about 5 minutes or so. Why does my neck hurt so bad? And I thought about it. I was like, in space, your head is just floating around, and you don't have to, your neck muscles don't have to hold your head up anymore. And so your neck muscles just sort of check out, And so when I got back to space, it was like I had the tingling sensation in my neck muscles. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to exercise my neck muscles. So lots of incredible things happen to the human body when you come back to Earth as well. And actually, the ride back in this capsule, I've gotten the privilege of coming back in a space shuttle, which was really smooth, like a glider almost, and you could feel a little bit of a vibration, and you can, as the wings, as you're doing your banking turns and decelerating through the atmosphere. But coming back in a capsule, when I came back on the Soyuz capsule in 2010, I kid that it was like going over Niagara Falls in a barrel, only the barrel's on fire. And that's sort of what it feels like. It's kind of a rough landing and an interesting ride back through the atmosphere in this capsule. So, Connor, there's a lot of not only getting back your feet firmly back on Earth, but just coming back to Earth and coming through the atmosphere is real physiologically very challenging as well. And these folks on this Dragon, this SpaceX Dragon, they'll come back and they're going to land in water. Now, whether that's in 30 days or 120 days, they're going to land under parachutes in water. And so that's going to be sort of like a return to our Apollo era when we landed our spaceships coming back from space in the water. So we're going to recover them from the water.
That's awesome. Well, I think we have taken enough of your time. I know that you've got a busy day ahead of you, and I can't wait to get my work done so that I can log in and check out the launch. Hopefully, all fingers crossed, it'll go for launch. Doug, thank you so much. If you have more questions, feel free to share your questions with us. We'll follow up with them as we can. Doug, it's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Enjoy the launch. Just sit back and to the all those American taxpayers listening in. This is your space program. This rocket, these astronauts, all of this hardware and ingenuity it belongs to you. So that's why we're so excited about the Launch America campaign. This is a space program of the people, by the people, and for the people. So tune in and watch your spaceship as it rockets off to the space station.
Awesome. Doug, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.